Hey guys, so let's code our first data structure. So we have seen in introduction to data structures, we have seen what are arrays, stacks, and we are yet to see queue, linked list, and so and so, right? So there are a lot of data structures, linear and non-linear data structures. Fine. So in this video, I'm gonna help you to how to write a code using arrays. A very simple data structure. Assuming that you are a beginner, I'm gonna teach you what are arrays. Okay. So arrays are nothing but a collection data type, right? So let me write a comment here. So for the information, I'm using this online C compiler to compile my C code. You can use your own editors, either Visual Studio Code or you can use your own editors, code blocks or whatever it is, or you can use this link onlinegdp.com online C compiler. Okay, you can search for online C compiler and it will show you. You can use this. Arrays are nothing but sequential data. Okay, sequential data structure. Okay, so you will have a sequence of data stored in arrays. For example, let me have an array of numbers. Okay, so I'll have an array called numbers, and I'm setting the size here. So I have to state the size there, right? I'm setting 5, so it can store 5 values, right? So let it be 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, it can store any value, right? It can be 37 also. And I am declaring this array as an integer array. You know what is an integer, right? I assume that you know the basic basic stuffs of C programming, like data types and variables and all. If not, then this is not the right course for you. Okay, so this is the data type of the array. So int the array name, the size inside the square brackets, then you should declare the elements like this. It's not necessary always to declare elements like that. You have to get the input from the user, but in some cases if you want, you can declare elements like this. Okay, so the point here is this array will store 5 elements. Okay, this array can store 5 elements, and those elements are 1 2 37 4 and 5. And this array, if I declare that as 8, this array can store 8 elements. Okay, 8 different integer values. But the point here is you are giving only 5. Okay, you are giving only 5. Okay, so by default the other 3 entries, because it should store 8, because I have declared it as 8, and now I'm giving only 5 values. Of course I can change this, I can manipulate these values in between my program. But if I leave like this, then the other 3 values would become 0 by default. Okay, so this is called as partial initialization. I just want you to remember this, right? Partial initialization. Okay, so what do you mean by partial initialization? If you are declaring a size for an array and if you are initializing some values, then if the number of values that you initialized, I repeat, if the number of values that you initialized is less than the size of the array, and automatically all the other values will be taken as 0. That's called as partial initialization, right? So yeah, I'm declaring 5 values here. I'm initializing 5 values, but the array size is actually 8, so I'll have all the other elements to be 0, the other 3 elements, right? So this is something I just want to insist here, because I just want to provide some different steps of about arrays. Okay, because most of you might be knowing about arrays, right? So you know how to declare. First of all, you know how to write a C code, right? Okay, so let me open my main function. So inside main function I have to write my C code, right? So let me declare an array. I'll say int array. Okay, I have to put this bracket. Let me mention the size as 100. Okay, so it can store up to 100 elements, but I am not initializing any value. So I have to get the values from the user, right? So let me write a simple code to get the value from the user and print that. Okay, let's go with the simple stuff. Okay, get the values from the user and print that. Okay, so first of all, let me write a printf statement. I'll say enter the size of the array, because only when you get the size from the user, you know how to, you will be knowing how to iterate the loop. Okay, and I understand. Okay, I assume that you know about loops. Okay, so the idea here is, the point here is, you have to get the size of the array first. Of course, we have declared a size, but that is maximum size. Okay, maximum you can have 100 elements, but user can't enter 100 elements, no. So we have to get the size of the array, the size of the elements, I mean the total number of elements that the user wants to enter. Okay, so let me declare it as n, a variable n. Understand that if you want to use a variable, then you have to declare that too. Fine, you know that, right? So an ampersand of n. So the ampersand of n refers to again the address of n. So it will get the value and it will store that in n. Okay, so in a variable called n. Say for an example, if I declare if I give, if I am a user, if I give n equals to 5, then 5 will be stored in n. Okay, so now the size of the array is 5, which means that it can take 5 values. But how I'm gonna write that? For that I have to use a for loop. Okay, for loop will have a counter, so I'll declare the counter also. Say it is I. Okay, so for, you know how to write a for loop, right? I assume you know that. So for I equals to 0, I less than n, I plus plus, right? So in a for loop, understand that you have three components. Okay, three. I would say these are the three major parts of for loop. One is the initialization, which will be executed only once, and second one is actually the condition. If this condition is false, then the loop will stop. And this one is actually your increment value. Okay, I'll explain this. Wait, hold on. Okay, if I say I plus plus, I will be incremented by one value. I mean, if I equals to 1, if I say I plus plus, then it will become 2. Okay, it will be incremented by one value, right? So here I have to put a address of a of I, right? So what will happen here? I assume you know that, but let me explain it again. Okay, so what will happen? So this statement will be executed only once, right? I will be initialized only once. So first of all, I will be initialized the value 0. If you want, you can remove this statement. You can remove this. You can put like this: I equals 0 here. It doesn't matter, okay? Because the idea here is initialization, right? So I should be initialized to 0. That's important. Fine. So after that, I'm giving a condition. It will check the condition. Okay. So say I'm entering n equals to 5, right? Which means that I'm intending to enter 5 elements. Okay. I'm intending to enter 5 elements. So it will check whether I is now 0. I is initialized to 0. So it will check whether 0 is less than 5. The condition is actually true, right? 0 is actually less than 5, right? So it will go inside, execute this. What does this states? Address of a of I. Okay, what do you mean by a of I? Okay, let me tell you this. Fine. Arrays have indexes. Okay, or indices. Fine. Arrays have indices. To be very short, I can easily explain this. Wait a minute. Okay, so let me declare an array. So let me take this array numbers. Okay, we have 5 values. How do I locate a value in array? The main advantage of using array data structure is you can easily store and retrieve the elements. Okay, you can that's the important point I want to insist here. You can store and retrieve elements easily. Okay, retrieve elements, right? Okay, and you need not maintain any order. Okay, you can randomly store elements, you can randomly retrieve elements. It's like booking a ticket, booking a ticket for a movie, right? In online, through online, if you book a ticket for a movie, what will be shown? It will be having rows and columns of seats. Then you can pick your favorite seat, right? Likewise, array means it will be having a lot of values. You can pick any value which you want. Okay, so by default, okay, let me have some different values, because the indexes and the values would confuse you. So let me have different values. Fine. So by default, each value will have an index. Okay, what do you mean by index? Index is nothing but a page number. Okay, page number kind of stuff. Each value will have an index, and through that index you can actually access those values. Am I making clear? Using those indices, using that index, you can actually access those values. Say for an example, this value will have an index 0. Indexes by default, it starts from 0. Okay, indices by default, indices or index, okay, it starts from 0 by default. Fine, it starts from 0. Okay, so this value will have an index 0. This value will have an index 1. This value will have an index 2. Like that it goes on. Okay, so how do I access 50? If you want to access 50, how do I do that? That's pretty simple. I'll say numbers 0, count the index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the fourth element, right? So you say numbers of 4, it will fetch you numbers of 4, it will fetch you 50. That's it. Fine. um, understand that you are having 5 elements here, but index starts from 0. So this is 0th element, first element, second element, third element, fourth element. Okay, how do you access the second element? I'll say numbers of 2. Numbers of 2 is the second element, right? Understand, it's 0th, first, second element, 37. So 37 is your second element, right? This is assigning. This is assigning. You can change values like this, but understand that numbers of 2 will provide 37 and numbers of 4 will provide 50. And it's not a code, okay? Don't take it as a code. It's just for your understanding, okay? I'm giving like this. Just for my explanation, okay? This is not a code. You can't provide anything like this, okay? This is something different which will come in structures, okay? Also, that is also different. You'll have only one hyphen here, okay? Fine. So now arrow operator, that's called as arrow operator. We'll talk about that later, okay? Numbers of 4 will have value 50, numbers of 2 will have value 37. If you want to change the value, I'll say numbers of 40, numbers of, sorry, not 40. Let's say I want to change this value, right? The first index. So this is the first index, right? 20. Okay, this is 0th and this is first. Okay, I have to put numbers of 1 and I have to assign, say, 46. So now 20 will be replaced with 46. Okay, this is called assignment statement. Okay, so you are storing 46 to numbers of 1. What is numbers of 1? This location, right? 20th location. I mean the location which has 20. So 20 will be replaced by 46 if you execute this statement, okay? So that's how indexes work, okay? Indexes or indices work. It's mainly used for storing and retrieving elements. Fine. So these are the two basic operations which you have in array, storing and retrieving. So what I am doing here is storing. Okay, so I'm gonna store my elements because I have just declared an array which doesn't have anything, right? I've just declared an array and I have not initialized any value, right? So I'm gonna store the value first. I'm gonna store some values which is being got from the user. Okay, so user is gonna enter the values and that will be stored in this array declaration. Okay, so let me call the array as a. Okay, fine. So understand this loop first. I equals to 0, so it will scanf means it scans something from the user, right? So I equals to 0, so a of 0, so I is 0, so address of a of 0, so you will get the value and store it in that particular location, a of 0. Fine. So a of 0, that's the first location, right? So scanf means you get the value and store it in a of 0. Fine. And I will be incremented, so a becomes 1 and this is commenting, okay? You don't care about this. Fine. So a of 1, I will be incremented, become a of 1. So get the value from the user, store it in a of 1. Again I will be incremented because condition is true, right? The condition gets false only when I becomes 5, okay? Because n, if I enter n is 5, if I enter n as 5, only when 5 less than 5 is false, right? Understand that I am entering n as 5, so I gets incremented for each value. I become 0, I become 1. Okay, the exact flow is initially I is 0, it will check the condition, it will scan the value, store that in a of 0. Okay, increment the value of 5, I becomes 1, it will check the condition again, 1 is less than 5, condition is actually true. So go and get the value, store that in a of 1. Now I becomes 2, it will check the condition 2 less than 5, the condition is true. Go to the scanf statement, get the value and store that in a of 2. I becomes 3. Okay, now I is incremented, I becomes 3. 3 less than 5, condition is true. Go to your scanf statement, get the value of a of 3 and store that in a of 3. Okay, so when I becomes 5, like this loop goes on iterating. When I becomes 5, this condition will get false because 5 less than 5 is not true. So the loop will stop executing. So you will be getting the 5 values from the user. If the user enters n equals to 5, then this loop will execute 5 times and you will be getting 5 values from the user. So that's storing, right? Let's retrieve this. Okay, the let's say printf the array elements are, okay, printf the array elements are, scanf then, okay, there is no need to go for any scanf. Just repeat this for loop. Okay, repeat this for loop. So, and instead of having print scanf, let's print the value, let's retrieve all the values. Okay, so what we are basically doing here is we have got all the values from the user. After that we are printing all the values. That's it. With the help of same loop we are retrieving all the values. Fine. So here I will have one more statement so that the user will be informed. Okay, I'll say enter the elements. Fine. Okay, I think this code looks good. um, I have to have one more called the header file hash include stereo.h. I hope you know the usage of this header file, because we are using functions like printf and scanf. These functions are present only in this header file. Okay, so if you want to use printf and scanf, you have to include this header file, so that all the C programs will have this header file. Because in all the C program, uh, best case, okay, in best case or worst case, we want to print something, right? So we have to use this. Okay, so let us run this code and check what happens. Okay, this code looks good. Enter the size of array. So let me enter 5. Okay, let me go for 4. Okay, let me try a different value. So the loop will execute now only 4 times. Okay, the loop will execute 4 times because n I have taken as 4. Okay, so let me enter the values. 1. Okay, let me enter 10, 20, give enter 30, 40. So those are my 4 values. Okay, 10, 20, 30, 40 are my 4 values. Then I press enter. The 4 values getting printed. Okay, I'm printing the 4 values. Okay, so here I'm using the same loop. I'm just printing the 4 values. So this is the two basic operation. This is storing the values, this is retrieving the values. Okay, fine. So I think this is the basic program to explain the array, to explain those two, storing and retrieving. But the point here is you have declared the maximum size of the array be say 100. Okay, you have declared the array to be 100, but you are using only 5. Then what about the remaining 95 values? Those values get wasted, or those memory allotments get wasted, and this is one of the very good disadvantages of array. Okay, very good disadvantage. Okay, so because it's a static data structure and you can't allocate dynamic memory. Okay, here, okay, you can do that, but that's different concept. Here we are declaring the size as 100, which means that, you know, 200 bytes of memory will be allotted. Fine. So something. Okay, so integer, let's say integer takes 4 bytes. Okay, each integer will take 4 bytes. Okay, according to 32-bit architecture, each integer will take 4 bytes. So I am declaring a of 100, so it will take 400 bytes, right? This array will take 400 bytes, but I am storing only 5 values or 4 values. So the other bytes, say 390 or to 380 bytes, will get wasted. Okay, that's one of the very good disadvantages. Fine. So this is the main drawback of using static data structure. Your memory is getting wasted. Okay, and if you want, you can decrease this size. You can go give it to 10, but you can't do it dynamically. Okay, here and all, you can't change the size. Okay, once if it is declared, and then that's it. Okay, you can't change the size. So that's one of the drawbacks of using this array. But anyway, we have to use this, and that problem is rectified by a concept called as linked list. Okay, data structure. So we'll discuss on that later. Okay, so I hope you got some ideas about arrays, and we'll do programs in that. Okay.